Hey guys, this is Jay Calderon with Jay Unboxing, going over the weekend's results and going to be handing out some fighter grades. And of course, would love to know what you guys thought, and go ahead and hand out your own grades down in the comments section below, dispute mine, all that good stuff. Love to hear all of it. Like last week, a bunch of fights this weekend. Promoters and networks seem to be cramming for finals, it seems, in December. We had a couple of shows in England, a handful of shows in the States. Lots to cover, so not a lot of time to waste here. So let's get into some grades. Starting off with our first fighter here, Naoya Inoue, and I'm going with the grade of an A minus. He defeated, and I'm going to say his name once and never butcher it again, Iran, I believe it would be Daipan or Dapan. Sorry about that. By 8th round technical knockout, retaining his WBA and IBF bantamweight titles as well as his Ring Magazine World Championship as well. And to be honest with you, he didn't really have much of a bad step in the fight. The first couple of rounds, Iran was kind of bringing it a little bit, and he was trying to at least impose himself a little bit. But really, Inoue didn't really get out of second gear in the whole fight. He was putting together some decent skills nonetheless, but it wasn't as though you felt like he was really under any pressure to have to step up his game. What he was bringing was enough for this kind of showcase fight, his first fight back in Japan in over a couple of years. It just seemed like something he wanted to kind of, again, just kind of give his home fans something to root for more than really challenge himself in this case. He didn't show up unprepared or like it was, a close call at all, really. And one of the biggest issues I had with this fight, that at times it felt like he was almost playing with him. I mean, he really did have that, and the quality of the opponent in general were kind of the only real marks you could have against him, other than maybe the first or second round being a little touch and go. But really, he was under no danger. We were under no illusions that he was going to lose that fight. It was a very dominant performance, and when you look at it and you think that maybe the second best fighter in the division is Nonito Donaire, who's close to 40 years of age, as good as Donaire has looked as of late, can you really pick anyone at 118 pounds to stand up to Inoue with his combination of skill as well as power? And again, it was on display in this fight as well. So, considering the task and what he was trying to accomplish, I'm going with the A minus. Next fighter I'm going with here is Joseph Parker, and I'm giving him a B minus. Now, he defeated Derek Chisora, this time more emphatically via 12-round unanimous decision in the heavyweight division. But the reason that I'm giving him a little bit of a harsh grade, even though he improved upon his most recent fight, is because there's really nothing new. It's still the same Parker. The difference is that you look at Chisora and he looks like an older Chisora. It wasn't so much that Parker looked all the more better in the fight, just that he was facing a more depreciated Chisora. Now, that being said, he did make it a little more emphatic. He did actually drop him. He showcased a little more power, which has kind of been a negative for Parker in a lot of his bigger fights, whether it's against Junior Fa, whether it's against, Ruiz, whoever it's been. When he's stepped up, he's had a hard time putting them really under any kind of major duress, with maybe the exception of Dillian White in their fight in the final round. But again, even then, it took 12 rounds to land that shot, and he couldn't finish him. And that's where the B minus comes in mostly for me, that he still doesn't have that killer instinct, which as a heavyweight you need to have, aside from just the marketing perspective and wanting to sell tickets and be a big attraction. You just need to have that kind of bailout power, and he didn't have it, or really that instinct in his case, and he didn't have it against Dillian White. He hasn't had it in a couple of those kind of close encounters, and in this fight, even when he had his man hurt, didn't put him away when he was kind of there to be put away. So you kind of get the grade that you have there. Nonetheless, did do better than his last time out, and he will move on, as we will as well. Third fighter I'm going with here is Amanda Serrano, and I'm going to be going with an A minus. She beat Miriam Gutierrez via 10-round unanimous decision in the lightweight division, her lightweight debut, trying to set up a fight with Katie Taylor. Now, a couple things about this grade I have to say. Number one, perhaps in a somewhat unfair way, I'm kind of basing this on how well she did versus how well Katie Taylor did against the same opponent. I'm also basing it on just what it looks like sort of leading up to that mega fight for them. At the same time, trying to be understanding that this is a new division for her. She's still small for the weight, and you could see the difference in size between her and Gutierrez. That being said, I think she wanted the stoppage a little bit too much, and that is sort of the reason that I gave her the A minus here, because she did get caught a little more than she should have. She's a better fighter than that, and was kind of rushing her work, getting tagged a little too much, and I think she just believes so much in her chin, which, again, to her credit, she didn't look troubled by really any shot this entire fight. That being said, she is in a new division where you can't necessarily do that against the very, very best, and Katie Taylor is the best at 135 pounds at this point. Let's make no mistake about it. So would I love to see her doing that again against Katie? Of course not, and for her sake anyway. So you have to kind of be mindful of that, but at the same time, does she look at least competent at her new weight and able to set up this fight? Of course she did. And she still looked the boss in the ring the entire time. I mean, barely lost a round, if two at the most. I mean, you have to give it to her. It was certainly, in my opinion, the performance of that particular card, and just because it was so dominant and it showed how many wrinkles she does have to her game in terms of toughness, in terms of punching power, in terms of accuracy. Again, a little bit of defensive lapses, but nonetheless, still a pretty solid grade for Serrano. Next fighter we're going to go with here is Artur Beterbiev, who fought on Friday, and I'm going to give him an A for his decision, or rather his KO in the 9th round over Marcus Brown to retain his WBC and IBF light heavyweight titles. The reason I'm giving him a pretty decent grade here, even though he did get, a little bit outboxed in the first couple rounds, so on and so forth, that's him processing things. And Brown isn't a scrub. He's a decent fighter, a decent boxer who can kind of fight on the inside, make it rough, make it dirty. And he sort of did by leading into yet another headbutt that affected his opponent negatively and not him. He has a history of that. But that allowed for Beterbiev to really face some adversity. I mean, again, he did a little bit in the Callum Johnson fight, but this is a different kind of adversity that was going to have to linger with him far beyond just, recovering from a single shot. This was him having to deal with pressure, deal with a boxer at times, deal with blood pouring into his face, and it was pouring. He had a massive gash on his forehead, and he still showed that he can do that, and not only that, but carry his power late, which he did. He knocked him out with a body shot as well, which, of course, you like to see those wrinkles in Power Punch's game when they can do something besides just headhunt, especially late in a fight, still trying to come up with the answer, the sort of key that unlocks the door, and that's what he was able to do. And finally, kind of softened him up in those 7th and 8th rounds, and then was able to finish him off in the 9th. A really good performance in that respect. You could even make an argument that the little vulnerabilities he did show maybe help get him a fight against a tougher name like a Bivol or a Canelo. So if anything, it could have potentially improved his profile overall, while still allowing for him to have a perfect 18-0 with 18 knockout record. So again, overall, I think it was a pretty good performance, which is why I went with the A. And the final fighter we're going to go with here for the 5th fighter spot is going to be Gilberto Ramirez, and I'm giving him a B-. And for this, the reason is because you saw his best and his worst. He's an exciting fighter. He has some decent pop. He can last pretty long into a fight and continue to throw his hands, and he's willing to do that. He can even take a shot. That being said, he took a lot of shots in this fight, and he didn't take all of them that well, though he did take them. He got wobbled in the first frame there. He was at times kind of backed up by those shots. You saw effectively what makes him great for his supporters and sort of questionable for his detractors. He's still fun and exciting, of course he is, but he is a little bit limited. And it's such a big favorite. I mean, in some books, I think he was like a 30-1 favorite. You would expect him to struggle less than he really did, which is why he sort of has that negative grade there. That being said, 175 is a very interesting division, especially if you have a certain red-headed Mexican move into the fray there. It becomes a significantly more exciting division where, again, with him, with a decent chin and some decent power, he's always potentially in the mix there. Could even face maybe the winner of Smith versus Johnson, pick up a title, and next thing you know, he's entered the Canelo sweepstakes. And it's a fight that I'm sure Canelo would expect to win, so I'm sure he'd accept to take it. Very, again, possible within that division, so it's not as though he completely knocked himself out of contention, but certainly could have put in a slightly better performance, to say the least. Honorable mention, I will say, before we get up out of here, is David Morrell. He defended his somewhat version portion, whatever, the 168-pound title against Atlantis Fox with a 4th-round TKO, and I'm going to go with an A- here. I would have went with an A if he was a bit more methodical with his approach early on, but he had some kind of looser shots, some wide looping shots at times, got a little bit carried away, a little reckless in that first round. And again, it might seem a little bit like nitpicky here, but you have to keep in mind it was a short fight. So when you're looking at the performance, while it was very good, and that's why I'm giving him the A-, there were some things that you could have hoped he might not have done, like, again, get tagged a little too much and keep his shots a little bit wild at times. That being said, for his, I believe it was his sixth professional fight, to take out a guy who's had some decent experience and to defend any portion of a title at any point, still pretty impressive, and it's going to be interesting to see how he mixes with some of those more elite names in the division as his career progresses. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Again, would love to hear all your grades. Go ahead and drop those. And please be sure to give me all of your kind of bets and your outcomes of those bets. Love to hear those as well. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification button and the bell. Would love that as well. Also, follow me on Twitter at jcalderon_JOB, and you can email me at jonboxing at gmail.com. Would love to hear from you there. Also, be sure to check out jonboxing.com for schedule, results, betting odds, rankings, and more. Later this week, I will be dropping kind of the year-end rewards that everyone seems to be giving out. Might as well throw my hat into the ring there as well. So be on the lookout for that. And as always, until next time.